Well, we'll continue exploring the role of instructional materials. And now we'll continue especially talking about, the role of commercial textbooks and their effectiveness for language teaching, and how the language teacher, despite criticism leveled against published commercial materials, how a language teacher can strike a balance and make those commercial textbooks useful for learners, okay, useful for a specific context. So we'll just see the element how language is seen as a functional and how it must meet the contextual needs of the language learners. Right. While designing effective language teaching materials, we need to ensure how commercial textbooks actually reflect writers' views of language. So, for example, if you are using Oxford University Press, series textbooks for language teaching from stage 1 onward. So it's important to see, what are the writer's points of view about language teaching, whether language teaching is seen as a grammar-oriented exercise or it's a communicative sort of activity, and how these views match the needs or expectations of the learners. For instance, Oxford University Press being written and produced in another country and brought in Pakistan. So we need to ensure whether these, meet the needs, are compatible with the needs of the learners. And, language can't be understood out of its context and out of its socio-cultural milieu. I mean, language carries its cultural and contextual implications. And while using textbooks, especially the commercial text, we need to ensure to what extent this element is there and how our teachers can ensure their usefulness. Right. And the commercial textbooks, we need to ensure whether the input or the output exercises, they contain the language which is engaging, motivating, and useful for the learners. Shared context is important element. Some commercial textbooks might not be sharing the context with the language learners, the target language learners. So it's important to, while using commercial textbooks, it's important like the language contained in the textbook is meaningful. I mean, it contains exercises which are meaningful, and it extends the content. It advances the language proficiency, and it comes with some audio and video aids, and its cultural relevance is broader. I mean, it doesn't contain, the exercises or the lessons which are culturally specific. I mean, which contain the lessons which are just planned and which take place in another country, but they might not be suitable for the learners in the Pakistani context. So the role of teacher in order to ensure that the language of a commercial textbook is, the teacher, I do believe that teachers can play their, roles in order to strike the balance, and they could edit, omit, delete, or add to the, commercial textbooks if they are being used in the classroom. So, for example, in the, in our English medium schools, there are a variety of commercial textbooks being used, and how the teacher can ensure that the textbooks being used are compatible to the contextual and functional needs of the students. And the teachers, I think, need to be very well qualified, and they could be trained, and they could bring harmony in this way between the commercial textbooks which were created in another country but used in another country, so the teachers can strike the balance.